The rain slashed sideways across Yaletown, transforming Vancouver's pristine streets into glistening mirrors. Emma Lawson's worn boots leaked at the seams as she trudged home, her restaurant uniform clinging damply beneath her threadbare jacket. 27 years old with culinary dreams buried beneath 3 years of serving other people's food. She paused beneath a storefront awning, watching rain cascade from torn canvas edges. That's when she saw him, an elderly man huddled against the locked door of a defunct bookstore, silver hair plastered to his forehead, clothes too fine for someone who should be homeless. Their eyes met. His startlingly blue, unnervingly sharp seemed to evaluate her worth in seconds. Emma should have walked away. You don't survive alone in this city by inviting strangers into your life. But something in those eyes made her step forward instead of back. She didn't know this single act would collapse her small, struggling world and rebuild it entirely. "Are you all right, sir?" Emma's voice carried barely enough power to cut through the downpour. The old man looked up, rain streaming down deep-set wrinkles. His clothes, expensive but sodden, clung to a frame that seemed both frail and formidable. "Quite all right," he replied with unexpected clarity. "Just waiting for this deluge to pass." Emma glanced up and down the empty street. Past midnight in November, the rain wouldn't stop until morning, and the temperature was dropping by the hour. His lips had already taken on a bluish tinge. "You don't have anywhere to go, do you?" The words emerged before she could reconsider them. His smile was dignified, almost proud. "My current situation is temporary." Emma shifted her weight, grocery bag cutting into her fingers, ramen and day-old bread purchased with her tips. Her apartment was 10 blocks away, barely heated, with paper-thin walls and a landlord who raised the rent with vindictive regularity. She'd have to be insane to bring a stranger there. "I have a couch," she said finally. "It's not much, but it's dry." His eyes, too perceptive, too knowing, studied her face. "Why would you help someone you don't know?" A good question. One her mother would have screamed at her for not considering. But Emma had buried her mother 3 years ago, along with the caution that might have saved them both from poverty. "Because it's freezing, and you're not dressed for it?" She extended her hand. "I'm Emma." "Robert," he replied, taking her hand with surprising strength. "Robert Ellison." The name tickled something in her memory, but Emma dismissed it. Vancouver was full of wealthy men whose names appeared in newspapers she couldn't afford to buy. They walked in silence, his gait surprisingly steady despite his apparent age. Her apartment building loomed, gray and unremarkable, its lobby perpetually smelling of cabbage and cigarettes. "Third floor," she apologized. "Elevator's been broken since September." He followed without complaint, breathing evenly as they climbed. Emma fumbled with her keys, suddenly aware of her home through a stranger's eyes, the peeling paint, the water stain spreading across the ceiling like a dark continent, textbooks on restaurant management stacked beside the couch because she couldn't afford bookshelves. "It's not much," she said unnecessarily. Robert stood in the center of her apartment, taking in the minimalist furnishings not by design but by necessity. Yet his gaze lingered on her kitchen, the only space that reflected any care. Mismatched pots hung in perfect order, knives aligned precisely on a magnetic strip, spices organized in recycled jars. "You're a chef," he said. "Not a question." "Trying to be." Emma moved to the kitchen, needing the comfort of the one space that made sense. "I'll make tea." As water boiled, she watched him from the corner of her eye. He'd removed his wet coat, revealing a tailored shirt that even soaked probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Where were you headed when the rain caught you?" she asked. Robert's face remained impassive. "Nowhere in particular. Sometimes I walk to clear my head." The kettle whistled. Emma poured hot water over tea bags, nothing fancy, just whatever had been on sale. "You live alone?" he asked, accepting the steaming mug. "Yes." She didn't elaborate on the scholarships that hadn't been enough, the culinary degree that had drowned her in debt, the 3 years serving tables while sending out resumes that disappeared into the void. "And you work as server at Portside Grill on Hamilton Street." Emma blew across her tea. "Not exactly what I trained for, but it pays most of the bills." Robert nodded, eyes suddenly distant. "The restaurant industry is unforgiving." "You sound like you know it." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've had some experience." They lapsed into silence, the rain a constant percussion against the windows. Before settling onto the couch for the night, Robert studied her bookshelf culinary texts, management guides, food history. "You've educated yourself well," he observed. Emma shrugged. "For all the good it's done me." As she turned to leave, Robert spoke again. "Tomorrow, Emma, I'd like to propose something to you." She paused, hand on the light switch. "What kind of something?" "An opportunity," he said simply. "One I suspect you've been waiting for." Morning light filtered weakly through Emma's threadbare curtains. She'd slept poorly, dreams filled with rain and strange blue eyes that seemed to see through her carefully constructed walls. She found Robert already awake, studying her collection of rejection letters, emails she'd printed and kept as motivation, each one declining her applications for kitchen or management positions. "You made a habit of collecting rejection," he observed, setting the papers down carefully. Emma flushed, embarrassed and defensive. "I keep them to remind myself that giving up isn't an option." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps. An unusual perspective. Emma busied herself making coffee, painfully aware of her apartment's shortcomings in daylight. The countertop's laminate peeled at the corners, the refrigerator hummed with concerning intensity. "I should explain who I am," Robert said, accepting the chipped mug she offered. "Just a man who got caught in the rain," Emma replied, attempting lightness. "Among other things." He set down his coffee. "Have you heard of Ellison Hospitality Group?" Emma nearly choked on her coffee. Ellison owned half the premium restaurants in the country, plus hotels stretching from Victoria to Halifax. "Of course. They're massive. I founded it 40 years ago," Robert said simply. "I'm still CEO, though my son handles most operations now." Emma's mug clattered against the counter. She stared at Robert Ellison, one of Canada's wealthiest men, whose net worth made headlines when Forbes updated their billionaire list. She'd served his son, William, once at Portside Grill. He'd tipped 20% exactly and never looked up from his phone. "Why were you?" She couldn't finish the sentence. Robert's expression tightened. "My driver was supposed to meet me after a board meeting. There was a disagreement with my son about company direction. I decided to walk rather than continue the argument. Then the rain started." Emma sank into a chair, mind racing. "You could have called someone. Taken a taxi." "My phone died." "As for taxis," he shrugged, "sometimes I prefer to be anonymous. In my position, true solitude is rare." Emma tried to process this information, matching the soaked old man from last night with the business magnate in her textbooks. I still don't understand why you'd tell me this. Why you're here. Robert studied her, the same penetrating gaze from the night before. You have a culinary degree gathering dust. 3 years of front of house experience. Obvious attention to detail. He gestured toward her impeccable kitchen. Yet you're serving drinks at Portside, which, frankly, doesn't deserve you. The assessment stung with its accuracy. What I don't understand, he continued, is why someone with your qualifications hasn't advanced. Emma's laugh held no humor. Have you seen the Vancouver restaurant scene? Positions go to people with connections. People who didn't grow up in foster care or need scholarships just to eat while studying. She hadn't meant to reveal so much, but lack of sleep had eroded her filters. Robert didn't offer sympathy, which Emma appreciated more than he could know. Maple Crown is our flagship restaurant in Cole Harbour, he said instead. They're short-staffed in the management track program. The executive chef is difficult but brilliant. The clientele is demanding. The standards are exacting. Emma's heart began to pound. What are you saying? I'm saying you helped a stranger without expectation of reward. That speaks to character. Your kitchen and your books speak to discipline and ambition. He leaned forward. I'm offering you an interview. Nothing more, nothing less. What happens after that depends entirely on you. Emma's thoughts whirled. Was this real? Was she being played somehow? Why would you do this for me? Robert's expression softened infinitesimally. 45 years ago, I was a dishwasher with ideas above my station. Someone saw potential in me when others saw only my circumstances. He stood, reaching for his now dry coat. Perhaps I'm simply paying forward an old debt. Emma watched him scribble something on her notepad, a name, a time, an address. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Ask for Charles Morton, the general manager. He's expecting you. Robert moved toward the door, then paused. One caveat, Emma. No one can know how this opportunity came about. Not Charles, not anyone at Maple Crown. Your merit must stand on its own, without my name attached. He was offering her a chance, but not an advantage. The distinction mattered immensely. I understand, she said, voice steadier than she felt. Good. The faintest smile crossed his face. I suspect you'll surprise them. You've certainly surprised me. After he left, Emma stood motionless in her tiny apartment, the notepad clutched in her hand, wondering if the last 12 hours had been some elaborate dream born of desperation and rain. Maple Crown occupied the ground floor of a glass tower that seemed to rise endlessly into Vancouver's perpetually gray sky. Emma arrived 40 minutes early, watching condensation from her breath form and dissipate against the restaurant's darkened windows. Inside, she knew, was one of Canada's most acclaimed dining establishments, recipient of multiple awards, training ground for the country's top chefs, playground for celebrities and power brokers. At precisely 8:45, Emma smoothed her only blazer purchased second-hand and altered by hand and pulled open the heavy glass door. The hostess, impossibly poised despite the early hour, assessed Emma with practiced neutrality. We're not open until 11. I have an appointment with Charles Morton. Emma fought to keep her voice steady. Emma Lawson. Something shifted in the hostess's expression, curiosity, perhaps even surprise. Of course. Please wait here. The interior of Maple Crown was understated elegance, stone and wood and soft light that would flatter even the most aging complexion. No detail had been overlooked, from the hand-blown glass fixtures to the subtle scent of cedar and spice permeating the air. "Miss Lawson." She turned to face a man in his 40s, his tailored suit and precise haircut screaming authority. Charles Morton extended his hand, grip firm and assessing. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Morton." "Charles, please." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Your resume was interesting. Not our typical management candidate." Emma felt her chance slipping away before it had even begun. "I understand my background is unconventional." "Quite." Charles gestured for her to follow. "Tell me, what makes you think you're qualified for our management track program?" They moved through the restaurant toward the back offices. Emma chose her words with precision. "I have formal culinary training, front of house experience, and I've studied restaurant management extensively. But more importantly, I understand that exceptional dining isn't just about food, it's about creating moments people carry with them." Charles's eyebrow lifted slightly. "And you learned this philosophy at Portside Grill?" The condescension was subtle but unmistakable. Emma refused to be baited. "I've learned from every restaurant I've worked in what to do and what never to do. Portside taught me how easily mediocrity becomes acceptable when standards slip." They reached a small office. Charles gestured for her to sit. "Let's be clear, Miss Lawson. We rarely hire externally for management positions. I agreed to this interview as a professional courtesy, but..." "To whom?" Emma interrupted, then immediately regretted it. Charles frowned. "Excuse me. You said professional courtesy. To whom?" A brief hesitation. "That's irrelevant. What matters is that Maple Crown maintains exacting standards. Our management team doesn't just oversee, they embody excellence." Emma leaned forward. "Then test me. Put me on the floor. Let me prove I belong here." Charles studied her with newfound interest. "That's quite bold." "Not bold. Necessary." Emma held his gaze. "You've already decided I don't fit. I'm asking for the chance to change your mind." After a long moment, Charles's expression shifted minutely. 2 weeks. You'll start as a server, but you'll be evaluated on management potential. One mistake and this experiment ends." "Understood." Relief flooded her veins. "Completely." Within an hour, Emma found herself in Maple Crown's meticulously designed uniform, a charcoal dress with subtle burgundy accents that somehow fit perfectly despite being off the rack. She was assigned to shadow Andrea, a senior server with a razor-sharp bob and an even sharper tongue. "Charles says you're being fast-tracked," Andrea remarked, not bothering to hide her disapproval. "Must be nice." Emma opted for honesty. "It's terrifying, actually. But I've waited too long for an opportunity like this to let fear get in the way." Andrea's expression remained skeptical, but something in her posture softened marginally. The restaurant opened, and Emma observed the intricate dance of fine dining service, the precise timing, the unspoken communication between staff, the subtle adjustments made for each guest's preferences. She absorbed every detail, asking questions only when absolutely necessary. By mid-afternoon, a foretop of executives arrived, clearly regulars by the way Charles personally greeted them. Andrea grimaced. "Table 7 is yours," she said. "They're William Ellison's business associates. Demanding, particular, and they'll judge everything from your posture to your knowledge of the wine list." Emma's pulse spiked at the name. William Ellison, Robert's son. The man whose argument with his father had indirectly led to this moment. Approaching the table, Emma centered herself. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to Maple Crown. May I start you with sparkling or still water?" The oldest executive barely glanced up. "Still. And we'll need the 2015 painted rock Syrah decanted." Emma nodded, then hesitated. "I believe the 2016 vintage might better complement today's menu. The chef is featuring smoked duck with a huckleberry reduction that would pair beautifully with the brighter acidity of the 2016. Silence fell over the table. Andrea froze mid-step nearby. Charles, from across the room, tensed visibly. The executive turned, fully looking at Emma for the first time. "Is that so?" "Yes, sir. Though of course, the 2015 is an excellent choice as well." A slow smile spread across his face. "The 2016, then. And tell us more about this duck." As Emma described the dish, she caught Charles watching her with an expression caught between alarm and intrigue. She'd taken a risk, and for the first moment since arriving at Maple Crown, she felt the ground steady beneath her feet. 3 weeks into Emma's trial period, she'd earned grudging respect from most of the staff. Her work ethic was unimpeachable, her knowledge of food and wine impressive, her ability to anticipate guests' needs almost uncanny. Almost everyone had accepted her presence. Almost. Melissa Adler had worked at Maple Crown for 5 years, gradually ascending from server to floor supervisor. 32, polished, connected to Vancouver's elite through family ties, she'd been the presumptive choice for the next management position. Then Emma had appeared from nowhere. "You're confident for someone so new," Melissa observed one evening as they polished glassware side by side. The words sounded like a compliment but landed like an accusation. Emma kept her focus on the delicate stemware. "I'm grateful for the opportunity, that's all." "MMM." Melissa's smile was pristine. "Such opportunities are rare. One might wonder how you managed to secure an interview when we haven't publicly posted openings in, what, Charles? 2 years." Charles, passing with a stack of menus, hesitated. "Approximately. Though we're always evaluating exceptional talent." His eyes flickered to Emma, the implication clear. Melissa's smile tightened imperceptibly. "How fortunate for us all," she murmured. The following morning, Emma arrived to find her section had been changed. Instead of her usual tables near the windows, she'd been assigned to the area adjacent to the kitchen, the noisiest, least desirable section. "Schedule adjustment," Melissa explained sweetly when Emma inquired. "We're expecting a large party by the windows." No large party materialized, but Emma served her section without complaint, even when Melissa seated an elderly couple with hearing difficulties directly beside the swinging kitchen doors. That night, checking her order pad, Emma discovered several pages missing, pages containing specific dietary requests from a regular customer due to arrive in 30 minutes. She searched frantically, finding nothing. "Lost something?" Melissa's voice carried affected concern. "My notes on Mr. Delaney's restrictions," Emma replied, keeping her voice neutral despite her racing heart. "Oh dear." Melissa's expression remained sympathetic while her eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "He's quite particular, isn't he? Allergic to shellfish, avoids nightshades, what else? No sulfites in wine, no eggs in desserts," Emma replied automatically, then stopped. "How did you know about the nightshades?" "That's not in his profile." Melissa's smile faltered momentarily. Someone must have mentioned it? Or someone had read Emma's missing notes. The realization settled like ice in her stomach. Rather than confront Melissa directly, Emma approached Charles. "I need to check Mr. Delaney's complete history. My notes are unavailable." Charles raised an eyebrow but pulled up the customer profile. Emma quickly reconstructed her notes, adding details from memory that weren't in the system. When Mr. Delaney arrived, his experience was flawless. The incidents escalated. A wine bottle was accidentally opened for Emma's table, a $300 mistake that would have come from her pay if the sommelier hadn't witnessed Melissa's switching bottle tags. Reservation times were altered in the system minutes before guests arrived, making Emma appear disorganized. Through it all, Emma maintained her composure, finding workarounds, staying late to double-check details, arriving early to verify her setups. She never accused Melissa directly, never complained to Charles. Then came the night of the charity gala. Maple Crown was hosting Vancouver's business elite for a fundraiser benefiting local food security programs. The guest list included CEOs, politicians, and most significantly Robert and William Ellison, making their first public appearance together in months. Emma had been assigned to the main dining room, while Melissa supervised the private event. 2 hours before service, Charles called an emergency staff meeting. "We have a situation," he announced, unusually tense. "The event's dietary information has been corrupted in our system. Every specialized meal request, every allergy notation gone." The staff exchanged alarmed glances. Such an error was unprecedented and potentially dangerous. "How is that possible?" Andrea asked. "The system backs up automatically. It appears someone accessed the files directly and deleted specific information," Charles replied, his expression grim. "We're investigating, but right now, we need to salvage this event." Emma's mind raced. She'd reviewed the guest list and dietary restrictions just yesterday while helping the kitchen prepare. "I might be able to help," she said quietly. All eyes turned to her. "I created a handwritten backup yesterday. I have notes on approximately 80% of the specialized requests." Charles stared at her. "You wrote them down? Why?" Emma hesitated, aware of Melissa's piercing gaze. "It helps me memorize details. I keep notes on all significant events and customers." What she didn't say, she'd started the practice after the missing order pad incident, suspecting that digital information might similarly disappear. Relief washed over Charles's face. "Where are these notes?" "In my locker." As Emma retrieved her notebook, she caught sight of Melissa's reflection in the polished surface of the bar, face drained of color, eyes wide with something between anger and fear. In that moment, Emma knew with absolute certainty who had deleted the dietary information. The gala proceeded without incident, Emma's notes allowing the kitchen to prepare appropriate meals for guests with restrictions. Through the evening, she felt Robert Ellison's gaze on her occasionally, though he never approached or acknowledged their previous meeting. Near midnight, as staff cleaned up, Charles called Emma into his office. Melissa was already there, standing rigidly beside his desk. "Miss Adler has something to tell you," Charles said, his expression unreadable. Melissa's perfect composure had cracked. "I deleted the dietary information," she said flatly. "And moved your section, and took your notes, and switched the wine tags." Emma remained silent, processing the confession. Security footage confirmed her access to the system immediately before the files disappeared, Charles explained. When confronted, Miss Adler admitted to the other incidents as well. "Why?" Emma asked, the question directed at Melissa. Because you appeared from nowhere, with no connections, no reputation, and suddenly you're being groomed for management. Melissa's laugh held no humor. 5 years I've worked toward that position. 5 years of perfect service, building relationships with every important person in the city. Then you walk in and she stopped abruptly. Charles cleared his throat. Miss Adler is no longer employed by Maple Crown. I want to apologize for the difficulties you've experienced, Emma. After Melissa left, Charles studied Emma with newfound respect. You knew she was sabotaging you, yet you never complained. Why? Emma considered her answer carefully. Complaining wouldn't have solved the problem. I needed to ensure guests weren't affected while finding solutions that would reveal the truth eventually. That, Charles said slowly, is exactly the mindset we need in management. The morning after Melissa's dismissal, Emma arrived at Maple Crown to find Charles waiting by the staff entrance, his customary composure slightly frayed around the edges. We need to talk, he said without preamble. Emma followed him to his office, anxiety churning beneath her professional facade. Had he discovered her connection to Robert? Had she somehow overstepped? Charles closed the door and took a seat behind his desk, studying her with an intensity that made her palms dampen. I've been reviewing your file, he began, tapping a folder before him. Your performance these past weeks has been noteworthy. Even excluding the gala incident, you've demonstrated exceptional aptitude. Emma remained silent, waiting for the inevitable but that followed such praise. I spoke with the executive team last night, Charles continued. We'd like to formally offer you a position in our management development program. The words hung in the air between them. Emma had expected this moment, worked toward it, yet now that it had arrived, she found herself searching for the catch. What exactly would that entail? She asked carefully. You'd shadow me and our other managers, rotating through departments front of house, back of house, purchasing, events. After 6 months, assuming satisfactory performance, you'd advance to junior manager. The full track typically takes 2 years before reaching senior management. It was exactly the opportunity she'd dreamed of, yet Emma felt a nagging doubt. May I ask what prompted this decision now? My trial period isn't technically complete. Charles leaned back, his expression thoughtful. Frankly, the way you handled the sabotage impressed everyone. You could have complained, pointed fingers, created drama. Instead, you found solutions and protected our guests' experience. He paused. That's innate. We can teach systems and procedures, but we can't teach character. Emma absorbed his words, recognizing their sincerity. Thank you. I accept. Excellent. Charles slid a contract across the desk. Review this at your leisure, though we'd appreciate your signature by week's end. As Emma reached for the document, Charles added, there's one more thing. William Ellison specifically asked about you after the gala. Her heart stuttered. He did. He was impressed with how you handled several difficult guests at his table. He's not easily impressed, Emma. Charles's expression grew curious. Have you met William before? No, she said truthfully. But I'm familiar with the Ellison name, of course. Charles nodded, seemingly satisfied. William visits regularly to check on operations. His father used to be more involved, but they've had disagreements about company direction recently. Emma maintained a neutral expression, despite the surge of interest at this confirmation of Robert's story. The son wants aggressive expansion, more locations, celebrity chef partnerships, international presence. The father prefers focusing on quality over quantity. Charles shrugged. Not that their family dynamics affect us directly. But they had affected Emma directly, in ways Charles couldn't imagine. The following week blurred into a whirlwind of new responsibilities. Emma shadowed Charles through budget meetings, vendor negotiations, and staff evaluations. She studied the restaurant's systems with the same intensity she'd once applied to her textbooks, absorbing the complex choreography that kept Maple Crown running seamlessly. Most staff accepted her promotion with congratulations, though Emma overheard occasional murmurs about her meteoric rise. Only Andrea approached her directly. "You know they're talking about you," Andrea said bluntly as they reviewed wine inventory one evening. "I'd be disappointed if they weren't," Emma replied, not looking up from her clipboard. Andrea snorted, almost appreciatively. "Fair enough. Just watch your back. Melissa had friends here." Emma finally raised her eyes. "Are you one of them?" "Melissa and I worked together for years," Andrea said carefully. "But I've never had patience for sabotage. What she did was unprofessional and dangerous." "And what about my promotion?" "Too much, too soon." Andrea considered this. "A month ago, I'd have said absolutely. Now?" She shrugged. "You've earned the chance. Just don't screw it up." Coming from Andrea, this qualified as enthusiastic support. 3 weeks into her new role, Emma was working late, finalizing orders for an upcoming wine dinner, when a knock sounded at the office door. She looked up, expecting Charles or perhaps the closing server. Instead, she found herself face to face with William Ellison. In person, the resemblance to his father was striking, the same penetrating blue eyes, though lacking the wisdom that had softened Robert's gaze. William's expression held none of his father's warmth, only a cool assessment that made Emma straighten instinctively. "Mr. Ellison. Charles mentioned you might stop by this week." "Did he?" William entered without invitation, glancing around the small office. "I don't believe we've formally met." "You're the new management trainee." "Emma Lawson," she supplied, standing to offer her hand. His handshake was firm but brief. "Charles speaks highly of you. Says you have an unusual background for someone in your position." There was something in his tone, not quite accusation, but adjacent to it, that raised Emma's guard. "I've worked hard to get here," she said simply. William studied her, head tilted slightly. "Yes, I imagine you have." He strolled to the window overlooking the darkened restaurant. "Tell me, Miss Lawson, what do you see when you look at Maple Crown?" The question felt loaded, a test with parameters she couldn't quite grasp. "I see excellence," she answered truthfully. "A commitment to quality that hasn't compromised despite changing trends." William's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Very diplomatic. But also very traditional. Some might say, stagnant." Emma chose her next words carefully. "I think there's a difference between tradition and stagnation. One preserves what works, the other refuses to evolve." "And which category does Maple Crown fall into, in your assessment?" "With respect, Mr. Ellison, I've only been here a short time." "That's hardly enough perspective to make such a judgment." William laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. "Again, diplomatic. You'll do well here, I think." He moved toward the door, then paused. "My father has always valued traditionalists. I'm more interested in visionaries." After he left, Emma sat motionless, replaying the strange encounter. There had been subtext she couldn't quite decipher, as though William had been having two conversations simultaneously, one with her, and one with someone who wasn't in the room. Someone like his father. 6 months into her management role, Emma had settled into a rhythm at Maple Crown. Her days were long and demanding, but filled with the challenges she'd craved during her years of serving other people's food and ambitions. She'd moved to a slightly better apartment, though her lifestyle remained modest compared to her colleagues. Student loans still consumed a significant portion of her income, and the habits of frugality were deeply ingrained. On a rare day off, Emma was experimenting with recipe ideas in her new kitchen when her phone rang, an unknown number with a Toronto area code. "Emma Lawson," she answered, wiping flour from her hands. "Miss Lawson, this is Rebecca Chan, Executive VP of Operations at Meridian Restaurant Group." Emma's hand stilled. Meridian was a rapidly expanding empire of high-concept restaurants backed by venture capital, the antithesis of Ellison's carefully cultivated establishments. "How can I help you, Ms. Chan?" "I'm calling to discuss a potential opportunity," Rebecca replied smoothly. "Our CEO, Grant Taylor, was dining at Maple Crown last month and was quite impressed with your handling of the service. He made inquiries about you." A chill ran through Emma despite the warmth of her kitchen. "I'm flattered, but I'm very happy with my position at Maple Crown." Rebecca's laugh was practiced and precise. "Of course you are. Maple Crown is a wonderful starting point for someone with your talents. But perhaps we should discuss where your career could go next." Before Emma could deflect again, Rebecca continued. "Meridian is launching a new concept in Yaletown, elevated Canadian cuisine with global influences. We're looking for a general manager to build the team from the ground up. Someone with fresh perspectives and proven capabilities." Emma nearly dropped the phone. General manager? She was at least a year away from such a title at Maple Crown, maybe more. "I appreciate the interest, but I'm still developing my skills here." "Skills develop faster with responsibility, Emma. May I call you Emma?" "We're prepared to offer a compensation package starting at $110,000, plus performance bonuses and profit sharing." "That's likely double your current arrangement." It was more than double, and Rebecca undoubtedly knew it. Emma felt lightheaded at the figure, enough to clear her student loans within a year, to help the foster family who'd shown her kindness during her darkest years, to finally build savings beyond her perpetual emergency fund. "I'm sensing your interest," Rebecca continued into Emma's silence. "Let me be candid. William Ellison is aware of this offer and has no objections. In fact, he mentioned you might be ready for greater challenges than Maple Crown currently provides." William knew? Had possibly even facilitated this call? The pieces clicked into place: his strange comments about traditionalists versus visionaries, his assessment of her during their brief meeting. "I'd need time to consider this," Emma said finally. "Of course. We're hosting a tasting dinner for potential investors next Wednesday at our Gastown location. Perhaps you could join us? See firsthand what Meridian offers. After that, you can make an informed decision." After ending the call, Emma sat at her kitchen counter, mind racing. The opportunity was exceptional, the money transformative. Yet beneath her practical considerations ran a deeper current of unease. Maple Crown had taken a chance on her when no one else would. Charles had mentored her patiently. The staff had eventually accepted her, some even becoming friends. And somewhere in the background, unseen but undeniably present, Was Robert Ellison the man who had set this entire journey in motion with an act of unexpected faith? What did she owe him? What did she owe herself? The Meridian tasting dinner was impeccably executed, innovative dishes presented with theatrical flair, wine pairings that challenged conventions, service that felt choreographed to the millisecond. Grant Taylor, Meridian CEO, spoke passionately about their expansion plans, their commitment to disrupting the stale Canadian fine dining scene. Emma recognized the subtle jab at establishments like Maple Crown. She also recognized that Taylor was speaking directly to her throughout the evening, selling not just the restaurant concept but the vision of what her career could become. As servers cleared the dessert course, Taylor settled beside her. "Your thoughts, Emma?" "Candid ones, please." "The execution is flawless," she said truthfully. "The concept is clearly defined." Taylor laughed. "I hear a but coming." Emma hesitated, then committed to honesty. "But I wonder if innovation for its own sake eventually becomes as limiting as tradition for its own sake." Rather than offense, Taylor's expression showed delight. "Exactly why we need you. Someone who questions, who balances innovation with substance." He leaned closer. "William Ellison speaks highly of your potential. Says his father's company is wasting it." Emma maintained her composure despite her shock. "William and I have barely spoken." "Perhaps, but he's clearly been watching. He believes you might be the bridge between old guard establishments like his father's and forward-thinking concepts like ours." The implication was clear: Emma was being positioned as a pawn in the ongoing battle between father and son, tradition and innovation. Walking home that night, Emma's thoughts tumbled chaotically. The Meridian offer was generous, the opportunity substantial. Yet the political undercurrents troubled her. Would accepting make her complicit in William's apparent campaign against his father's vision? The next morning, she arrived at Maple Crown earlier than usual, needing the familiar comfort of its quiet rooms before service began. To her surprise, she found Robert Ellison seated alone at the bar, nursing a cup of coffee. "Mr. Ellison," she said, genuine pleasure coloring her voice despite her confusion. He turned, those remarkable blue eyes crinkling slightly. "Emma. You're here early." "As are you, sir." "Robert, please." He gestured to the stool beside him. "Join me." Emma settled alongside him, acutely aware that this was their first real conversation since that rainy night months ago. "Charles tells me you're excelling," Robert said, studying her over his coffee cup. "Though that hardly surprises me." "Thank you for the opportunity," Emma replied. "It's changed everything." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "Opportunities are curious things. They reveal as much about the person offering them as the person receiving them." Something in his tone made Emma wonder if he knew about Meridian's offer. Before she could formulate a response, Robert continued. "My son believes I'm resistant to change. That my insistence on certain standards indicates a failure of vision." He set down his cup. "What he fails to understand is that not all change represents progress." Emma chose her words carefully. "Evolution doesn't mean abandoning what works. It means building upon it." Robert's expression warmed. "Precisely." He studied her for a moment. "I understand you've been presented with an interesting proposition recently." So he did know. Emma's cheeks flushed slightly. "News travels fast. In certain circles." Robert's tone remained conversational, but his eyes were sharp. "Meridian makes flashy restaurants. Grant Taylor is a gifted promoter. But Emma prompted. But restaurants aren't built on concepts or promotions. They're built on people who show up every day, who find meaning in creating experiences that matter. He paused. No one would blame you for accepting their offer, Emma. The compensation alone makes it tempting. Emma met his gaze directly. Is that what you think I care about most? Compensation. A smile touched Robert's lips. No. Which is why I find myself curious about your decision. I haven't made one yet. Haven't you? His expression suggested he knew her better than she knew herself. You helped a stranger in the rain when there was nothing to gain. You endured sabotage without complaint. You treat every guest as though their experience matters personally to you. He stood, placing a hand briefly on her shoulder. Some people work in restaurants. Others build legacies. I suspect you know which category you belong in. With that, he left, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts and a decision that suddenly felt much clearer than before. That afternoon, she called Rebecca Chen and declined Meridian's offer. The following day, she requested a meeting with Charles to discuss her long-term growth at Maple Crown. She had chosen her path, not based on salary or title, but on the legacy she wanted to build, one thoughtful experience at a time. Emma's decision to stay with Maple Crown cemented her reputation among the staff. Those who had doubted her commitment now embraced her as one of their own. Charles expanded her responsibilities, giving her oversight of special events and weekend service, prime opportunities to demonstrate her capabilities. Then came the news that rocked Vancouver's culinary landscape. Meridian Group had acquired a historic property 2 blocks from Maple Crown and would open their flagship restaurant, Novo, within 6 months. Heading the project? None other than William Ellison, who had left his father's company to become Meridian's chief innovation officer. The announcement sent shockwaves through Ellison hospitality. Robert issued a terse statement wishing his son success while reaffirming his own company's commitment to enduring quality over fleeting trends. Industry publications speculated about the father-son rivalry, with several suggesting that Maple Crown, the jewel in Robert's crown, would suffer most directly from the competition. In the months that followed, Novo's opening dominated local food media. Celebrity chefs were flown in for consultations. A renowned mixologist was poached from New York. Reservation lists opened to immediate sellouts. Meanwhile, Maple Crown's bookings began to show concerning gaps, especially on weeknights. It's just the novelty factor, Charles insisted during a tense management meeting. Once the excitement fades, our regulars will return. Emma wasn't convinced. We can't afford to be passive. Novo isn't just selling food, they're selling an experience, a story. We need to remind people of our story. Charles frowned. Maple Crown doesn't need gimmicks. Not gimmicks, Emma clarified. Meaning? Why do people choose us over anywhere else? What makes a meal here matter? The question hung in the air, unanswered but resonant. That evening, Emma stayed late, pulling reservation histories, studying patterns, searching for the thread that connected Maple Crown's most loyal guests. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. Still here? Robert stood in the doorway, looking wearier than she'd seen him since that rainy night. Just working through some ideas, Emma replied, gesturing to her notes. Robert entered, settling into the chair across from her desk. Ideas regarding our new neighbor, I presume? Yes. Emma hesitated, then pushed her notes toward him. I've been analyzing our core clientele, what brings them back, what they value most about Maple Crown. Robert scanned her meticulous observations. And what have you found? Consistency, certainly. Quality, of course. But something else too, connection. She leaned forward earnestly. Our regulars don't just come for the food. They come because Marco remembers exactly how they like their martini, because Andrea asks about their daughter's graduation, because the experience feels personal. Robert's expression softened with understanding. While Novo offers spectacle. Exactly. They're selling novelty. We're offering belonging. Emma took a deep breath. I'd like to propose something called the Provenance Project. She outlined her vision, a series of special dinners focusing on the stories behind Maple Crown's signature dishes, the Vancouver Island farmer who had supplied their mushrooms for 20 years, the indigenous fishing family who provided their salmon, the Quebec cheesemaker who created their custom blue. We highlight not just ingredients but relationships, Emma explained. Each dinner tells part of Maple Crown's story through the people who've built it. We invite media, of course, but more importantly, we invite regular guests to bring friends who've never experienced Maple Crown. Robert studied her intently. You're suggesting we fight spectacle with substance. I'm suggesting we amplify what already makes us special. A slow smile spread across Robert's face. You understand what so many never grasp, that true hospitality isn't about trends or techniques. It's about human connection. He stood decisively. Develop the full proposal. You'll present it to the executive team tomorrow. The Provenance Project launched 1 month before Novo's grand opening. The first dinner sold out within hours, not to food critics or influencers, but to longtime guests bringing friends and colleagues. Emma worked closely with the executive chef to create dishes that honored tradition while incorporating subtle innovations. Each course came with a story, delivered by Emma or the chef: the heritage grain farmer who'd weathered climate challenges, the third-generation beekeeper whose hives produced their wildflower honey, the potter who crafted their serving vessels. Media coverage was modest initially, but deeply appreciative. While Vancouver anticipates Novo's flashy debut, Maple Crown reminds us why it has endured, wrote the city's most respected critic. In an era of culinary theatrics, they offer something more substantial: a meal with meaning. Guests responded powerfully. Bookings increased steadily. Conversations at tables lingered longer. Staff found renewed purpose in sharing the stories behind their work. Novo's opening arrived with predicted fanfare: red carpets, celebrities, elaborate molecular gastronomy. William Ellison gave interviews positioning the restaurant as the future of Canadian dining. Without directly naming Maple Crown, he spoke dismissively of outdated establishments clinging to worn formulas. Emma watched the coverage with surprising equanimity. Novo would find its audience, certainly. But so had Maple Crown guests who valued substance over spectacle, connection over novelty. 3 months after Novo's opening, Vancouver Magazine published its annual Restaurant Awards issue. Against all industry predictions, Maple Crown received Restaurant of the Year not for innovation, but for authentic excellence and meaningful hospitality in an age of ephemeral dining experiences. The accompanying feature prominently discussed the Provenance Project, crediting Emma as its architect. A photograph showed her alongside the executive chef and Robert Ellison, all three looking genuinely happy amidst Maple Crown's warm interior. That evening, as staff celebrated, Charles pulled Emma aside. Robert would like to see you in his office. She found Robert standing by the window, award issue open on his desk. You've done something remarkable, Emma, he said without preamble. You found a way forward that honors our past without being imprisoned by it. Thank you, she replied simply. But it was a team effort. Orchestrated by you. Robert turned to face her fully. I'm creating a new position within Ellison Hospitality, Director of Guest Experience. The role would encompass all our properties, developing the kind of meaningful connections you've cultivated here. I'd like you to consider it. Emma's breath caught. Such a position would place her among the company's senior leadership, a meteoric rise from serving tables less than 2 years ago. That's unexpected. Robert smiled. Is it? You've demonstrated exactly the vision this company needs. His expression grew more serious. William's departure left wounds beyond the personal. He was meant to lead Ellison Hospitality eventually. Now that future requires reimagining. The implication hung silently between them. Robert wasn't just offering a promotion, he was potentially grooming a successor. I don't know what to say, Emma admitted. Say you'll consider it. Robert extended his hand. The future is uncertain, Emma, but I've learned to recognize those rare individuals who can navigate it with both wisdom and courage. You appear to be one of them. As they shook hands, Emma reflected on the extraordinary journey from that rainy Vancouver night to this moment, a journey sparked by a simple act of kindness toward a stranger who had turned out to be so much more. I'd be honored, she said finally. And I'll work every day to prove your faith well placed. Robert's smile deepened, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Of that, I have absolutely no doubt. Emma's journey from struggling server to restaurant executive illuminates truths that transcend the culinary world. Her story reminds us that opportunities often arrive disguised as ordinary moments, a stranger in the rain, a chance to demonstrate knowledge when others falter, the courage to decline the easy path for the meaningful one. Success rarely follows a predictable trajectory. Emma faced sabotage, skepticism, and the temptation of shortcuts, yet maintained her integrity throughout. She understood instinctively that genuine achievement isn't measured by titles or salaries, but by the impact we create and the relationships we build. Perhaps most powerfully, Emma's story challenges our definition of advantage. She lacked the family connections and financial security her peers enjoyed, yet possessed something more valuable, an authentic understanding of hospitality born from her own experience of deprivation. Her greatest professional strength emerged from her personal struggles, transforming what might have been considered a disadvantage into her unique perspective. In our own lives, we may not encounter billionaires who recognize our potential, but we will face moments where kindness seems optional, where integrity feels costly, where the easier choice conflicts with the right one. Like Emma, our legacy will be determined not by the opportunities we're given, but by what we choose to do with them. True success isn't reaching the destination, it's honoring the journey and everyone who travels it with us. Have you ever stood at a crossroads between the easy path and the right one? Maybe you faced colleagues who undermined your work, or declined a lucrative opportunity because something about it felt wrong. Perhaps you've made a simple choice like helping a stranger that unexpectedly changed everything. Your story matters. Share it in the comments below, because someone reading right now might be facing a similar decision, needing exactly the wisdom your experience provides. If Emma's journey resonated with you, consider who in your life needs to hear this message. A friend questioning their career path? A colleague facing workplace sabotage? A family member struggling to find meaning in their work? Share this video with them as a gesture of support and encouragement. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complex realities of modern life, stories that acknowledge the struggles while celebrating the triumphs, however small they might seem. Remember, success isn't just measured in promotions or paychecks. It's found in choices that align with your values, in work that creates meaningful connection, in the legacy you build one decision at a time. What choice are you facing today? What step, however small, could move you closer to the path that honors your unique gifts? The journey begins with a single moment of courage. Why not let that moment be now?